So, first we are going over factoring and graphing to find the vertex. This is technically the Chapter 2, Section 6 assignment. We're on day 6 here. So, first thing we want to note is what a vertex is. So we kind of have already gone over quite a bit of quadratics, and so we're just looking at this parabola shape, and the vertex is either this point or this point. And so what we're going to call that is the highest or the maximum or the lowest or the minimum of the parabola. Alright, and so again we're looking for that coordinate that's that highest point or that lowest point. So the process that we're going to use to find the vertex is to first factor the quadratic. Once you factor the quadratic, we're going to find the zeros. So that we can average them. And then the last piece is we're going to plug in the x to get the y. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go through this first left column of this assignment. So you can see that it kind of walks you through each of those, and then actually on the next piece, since we talked about it, is a graph. So we are going to do this whole piece here, example 1. Then you're going to do example 2, following that same process on your own in the homework assignment. And then kind of abbreviated without having to graph, you're going to do this second piece here. Alright, so again your assignment is going to be numbers 2 through 6, but on the notes we're doing number 1. Alright, so here we go. First thing I'm going to do here is identify the fact that we are factoring this, and so we're trying to find factors that multiply to be 3, and then at the same time add to be 4. And so the factors of 3 are either 3 and 1 or negative 3 and negative 1. And so of course if we're trying to add to be a positive 4, that means that our factored form is going to be x plus 3 and x plus 1. Then by the zero product property, which just means that if I want to make this a 0, I'd need a negative 3, or the opposite of that value. And this one, if I wanted to make a 0, I'd need a negative 1. It means that my zeros are negative 3, 0, and negative 1, 0. Then I need to find the average of the zeros. So remember that the average means add up and divide, in this case by 2. So if we add them up, that means I'm going to take negative 3, add it to negative 1, and then I'm going to divide the answer by 2. Negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 tells me that we have an answer of negative 2. So that means that my x value for this vertex is negative 2. But now I need the y value. So how do we get the y value? We plug the x value in to the equation. So looking at the equation at the beginning, we have x squared plus 4x plus 3. But I don't want x's anymore. All of those x's are going to become negative 2. When I solve this, I'll be able to get my y value. So y is going to equal this piece here, which is negative 2 squared, which should make 4. This next piece here, which is 4 times negative 2, so negative 8, and then plus 3. So 4 minus 8 becomes negative 3. Negative 3 plus 3 is apparently 0. Oh, turns out that I totally know what 4 minus 8 is, and that is actually negative 4. Okay, so negative 4 plus 3 is going to be our result of negative 1. So negative 1 0. Sorry, not negative 1, 0, but our x value, which we have up here as negative 2, and our y value that we just got, which was negative 1, makes our vertex. So again, this is either the maximum or the minimum. We will go over some ways of determining if it's a maximum or a minimum better than just graphing, but right now we're going to go ahead and graph. So before we get too far into this, I do know that if I plug in a certain set of these numbers into the equation, I am going to get, for instance, a 0 back out, right? So I know that the vertex is negative 2, negative 1. And so technically looking at the table, I know that that piece is negative 1. I also know since my zeros are negative 3 and negative 1, that those two pieces are going to kind of center around that. And then all I need to do is plug in each of the other pieces. So for instance, if I plug in a 0 to this equation, I'm going to get 0 plus 0 plus 3, so a 3 back out. The next piece, if I put in a 1 into each of these, I'm going to get 1 squared, which is 1, plus 4 times 1, which is 4, plus 3, so apparently 8. The next piece, if I plug in a 2, 2 squared is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, and 3, so 15. And then the last one is plugging in a 3, 3 squared is 9, plus 4 times 3, which is 12, plus 3, and so we get 24. Since I do know that this is a parabola, if this is going from a center of negative 1, and these both are 0, then these both are going to match as well. And so this is actually 3 over here, and then 8, and then 15. So it follows that pattern. I also didn't fill in my zeros before. Negative 3, 0, and negative 1, 0. Alright, so if we go through and plot this, let's see, my vertex is negative 2, negative 1. So right there. Negative 3, 0 is one of my zeros, and negative 1, 0. Whoops. And then from there, I'm going to go over nothing up 3. So that's right there. Over 1 up 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 15. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, it does go up to 15. Okay. So that's up there. And then the other side does that same pattern. So we're going to go over 1 and then up to this same line. Whoops, it's right here. Wow, that's terrible. We'll do that again. Okay. Still bad. And then over 1 up to here, and then all the way up to here. So our parabola turns out has a vertex that's a minimum, right? Because we are seeing that this is our minimum. So just something to note. Alright, and so that's kind of the idea of graphing. Now going back to what we knew from all of the work on the previous page, we really only were able to see kind of those, let's see, 3 dots that were making up the equation in its parabola. But even from those 3 dots, you can definitely see that it would have kind of gone in this direction from those 3 dots versus upside down. So kind of just a way of starting to sketch the graph. So that is what you're going to be expected to do in this next problem, so in number 2. And then these pieces will be done in these bottom problems, but without graphing. So just identify the zeros, the vertex, and then you can be done. Alright, so that's your 2.6.